I never thought it would come to this. When I married Sarah, I pictured a life filled with laughter, love, and a promise that we'd always stand by each other. I thought we were on the same page, building our future together. But lately, things felt off. Little signs, the kind you brush off at first. Her phone always face down, her sudden late nights at work, the way she'd become more distant. I convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. After all, we've been together for 6 years, and that's a decent stretch of time. We both worked hard. I sold insurance, and she was climbing the corporate ladder at a marketing firm. Whispers of her success made me proud, but I also noticed how she was changing. The late nights turned into "I'm going out with friends" that didn't include me. There was an edge to her laughter I didn't recognize, and I could feel a chasm growing between us. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. Sarah was my partner, my confidant. She couldn't possibly betray me. Then, one afternoon while taking out the trash, I stumbled upon something that turned my world upside down. I had my hands full balancing a mound of garbage when I noticed a glint of color in the mess. It was a lipstick-stained glass, and not just any shade, it was a deep, vivid red, one that I knew didn't belong to Sarah. I stood there, trash bag in hand, my heart racing as I squinted at the glass. I thought back to the last time I saw her put on lipstick, and I knew this wasn't hers. I was torn between disbelief and rage. Who was it? What was going on? I searched my mind for answers, grasping at straws and memories where everything was fine. It suddenly hit me that I had to confront her. Maybe I was wrong, but the evidence felt so undeniable. I could feel anger boiling up within me, threatening to spill over. I took a deep breath and prepared for what was sure to be the worst conversation of my life. When Sarah got home, I could see she was in a good mood. The kind of mood that would annoy me when I was stewing in anger. I didn't waste time. I pushed the trash bag aside and pulled out. "What's this?" I asked sharply, trying to contain my temper. Her smile faltered for a split second before she regained her composure. "What's that? A glass?" she replied, feigning ignorance. "Don't play games with me, Sarah. This isn't your color. Who's been drinking from it?" She looked at me with those big doe eyes that I once found charming, but now they just made me angrier. "Oh, come on, it's just a glass. I went out with some coworkers last week. I must have forgotten it there." A lie. I knew it was a lie. I could feel the betrayal crushing down on me like a weight I couldn't lift. I pressed on, demanding the truth, but all I got were flimsy excuses. "You're being ridiculous, Jake. I'm not cheating on you. You're overreacting." She insisted, her voice rising in pitch. I felt my heart sinking deeper. The emotional pain was sharper than I had ever experienced. There was a knot in my throat as I realized my marriage was unraveling before my very eyes. However, beneath that pain, another feeling was brewing, anger and a desire for revenge. I didn't know how to channel it yet, but I could feel the ember of a plan forming in my mind. The conversation spiraled into chaos. I felt like I was losing control of the situation, but a part of me was determined to get justice for the betrayal that had been thrust upon me. Sarah continued to deny everything, her protests growing more frantic as I stood my ground. Somewhere along the way, I realized that I had to decide what to do next. I could either crawl back into the shell of ignorance or confront this head-on. I chose the latter. The glass wasn't just a piece of evidence. It was a catalyst for something much larger. It was time to take action, to reclaim my life and confront the reality of what lay ahead. Little did I know, the road to revenge would not be as simple as I imagined. In the days following that explosive confrontation, my mind was a storm of emotions. I felt utterly shattered, like the glass I had found in the trash. I tried to go about my daily life. Work was a blur, and my friends noticed something was off but didn't pry. I smiled when I had to, but the pain was like a constant ache in my chest. In the quiet moments, I replayed the argument in my head, the look of defiance on Sarah's face, her insistence that I was overreacting. But I was far from overreacting. The lipstick wasn't just a careless mistake, it was a symbol of deceit. I couldn't shake the image of that red glass from my mind, or the thought of Sarah with someone else. A cold anger began to settle in my bones, replacing the initial shock. I knew then that I had to devise a plan, not just to confront the affair, but to ensure that Sarah would feel the weight of her betrayal. I started small. I began to pay more attention to her habits. I took mental notes of her schedule, the times she was supposedly working late or out with friends. Each time she mentioned getting together with her coworkers, I felt a jolt of adrenaline, like a hunter preparing for a chase. I also started to notice little things. Her phone buzzing with messages that she would quickly dismiss, her social media activity that was becoming increasingly secretive. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle coming together, painting a picture of betrayal that was impossible to ignore. One afternoon, I decided to follow her. It was a risk, but I didn't care. I parked a few blocks from her office and waited, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed proof, something tangible to confront her with. I didn't want to go on mere suspicions. I wanted to lay bare the truth. Hours passed, and just as I was beginning to think I was wasting my time, I saw her walk out of the office building, her phone glued to her ear, laughing at something her friend had said. When she turned the corner, I followed, keeping a safe distance. The knot of anxiety in my stomach was tighter than ever, but I pressed on. She led me to a nearby cafe that I recognized, a place we used to frequent. As I watched from my hidden vantage point, my heart dropped when I saw a man join her. He was tall, with dark hair and a confident posture. They shared a laugh that felt like a dagger to my gut. I couldn't hear their conversation, but the way she leaned into him, the warmth in her expression was enough to confirm my worst fears. It felt like the world stopped for a moment. I could hardly breathe, the mixture of anger and betrayal surging inside me. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of them, the smile on Sarah's face contrasting sharply with the rage bubbling within me. I knew I had the evidence I needed, and it made me feel powerful, but the raw pain still coursed through me. That night, I confronted her again. I laid the photo on the kitchen table between us, the evidence of her betrayal stark against the wood. Her face turned pale as she recognized the image. "How could you?" she gasped, her bravado crumbling. For a moment I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction, but it quickly evaporated as I watched her expression shift from shock to something more defensive. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." She tried to explain, her voice trembling with desperation. "Then tell me what it is," I challenged, unable to mask the bitterness in my tone. "Is this your idea of going out with friends? Because it sure looks like you're getting cozy with someone else." Her excuses poured out, riddled with contradictions and half-truths. "I just got caught up in the moment. It didn't mean anything." She attempted a laugh, but it sounded hollow, and I felt my blood boil. Every lie she told felt like a fresh wound. I realized she was not just cheating on me. She was also manipulating the entire situation to make me look like the villain. My anger shifted from her actions to the realization that I had been living with this woman who had been lying to me, not just about her infidelity, but about the very fabric of our lives together. It was clear now that I could no longer trust her. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions. That was the moment I decided that I would no longer be the passive husband, the man who simply absorbed her betrayal. I would make my move. With my heart racing and my mind set on a path of revenge, I began plotting my next steps. I had to be smart about this, to bide my time and make sure my actions would hit her hard. I wanted her to understand the depth of her betrayal, and I was going to make sure she felt it. The game was on, and I was ready to play. After that night, the atmosphere in the house was suffocating. I was bursting with anger and confusion, while Sarah appeared to be trying to regain control of the narrative. She was frantic, desperate to smooth things over, but I found it difficult to look at her without feeling a wave of revulsion. I had seen her at her best and now at her worst, and the latter was far more revealing. Her apologies came in waves, each more insistent than the last. "I love you, Jake. I made a mistake, but it didn't mean anything. It was just a fling," she pleaded, her voice breaking. I could see the tears glistening in her eyes, but all I felt was a cold detachment. How could I believe anything she said at that moment? A part of me felt the urge to soften, to let myself be swayed by her emotion, but I pushed that part down like a beach ball submerged in water. I needed to keep the pressure on. I had a plan to execute. I started by gathering information, compiling everything I could about Sarah and her friend. His name was Evan, an old college acquaintance of hers. I did some digging online, going through social media profiles and mutual friends. It didn't take long to uncover that they had been in contact long before I ever suspected anything. Photos of them together, comments filled with flirtation, and shared posts about late-night drinks. It was all there, laid out like a roadmap of deceit. Each piece of information empowered me, fueling my desire for revenge. After a few days, I devised a plan that would expose Sarah in a way that would leave no room for denial. I decided to throw a small get-together at our house, inviting a few close friends and, of course, Evan. I knew Sarah would be excited about the idea of hosting and wouldn't suspect a thing. I set the date for the following Saturday, giving me just enough time to pull everything together. The night of the party arrived, and I put on my best poker face. I greeted our friends with a smile while internally I was calculating how things would unfold. Sarah was in her element, bustling around to prepare snacks and drinks, oblivious to the storm brewing under the surface. I could see the joy on her face, and it made my blood boil. As the guests trickled in, the atmosphere was lively. Laughter filled the air, and the tension I had been holding onto was momentarily masked by the sounds of my friends enjoying themselves. When Evan arrived, I felt a rush of adrenaline. He walked in with a casual air, completely unaware of the trap I had set. After an hour of mingling, I decided it was time to put my plan into action. I gathered everyone in the living room under the pretense of playing a party game. How about a little truth or dare? I suggested, a smirk playing on my lips. Everyone cheered, and I could see Sarah's eyes flicker with excitement. I could almost hear her thoughts. This was just another innocent game, but I had different plans for her. As we went around the circle, I was careful to steer the game towards more revealing questions, subtly nudging Sarah and Evan into the spotlight. When it was Evan's turn, I leaned in with feigned innocence. "Okay, Evan, truth or dare?" He grinned, clearly comfortable. "Truth," he said confidently. I took a deep breath, feeling the exhilaration surge through me. "What's the most memorable night you've had with Sarah?" I shot the question out like an arrow, watching as the laughter in the room momentarily froze. Sarah's face drained of color, and everyone turned to look at her, then back to Evan, who was caught off guard. He hesitated, glancing at Sarah before he replied, well, there was that time we went out for drinks and got a bit carried away." The tension in the room thickened, and I could feel the heat radiating off Sarah as her cheeks flushed with panic. "Oh, come on, we were just friends. It was nothing." She interjected, but her voice quivered, and I could see cracks forming in her facade. "Just friends," I echoed, leaning forward. "So you weren't getting cozy and sharing secrets like lovers do?" The laughter in the room faded into an uneasy silence. Evan looked between us, his confidence waning. "I mean, we had a good time, but it wasn't," before he could finish, I cut him off. "Sarah, is this what you consider just friends? Because it sounds a lot like betrayal to me." The room erupted into gasps, and I could see her scrambling for a way to regain control. "Jake, this isn't fair," she shouted, her voice cracking under the pressure. "You're twisting things." But I wasn't twisting anything. I had exposed her in front of our friends, and I prayed she felt the weight of that betrayal crushing her. I watched as her attempts to spin the narrative fell apart, her lies laid bare for everyone to see. The evening spiraled out of control, and as the guests began to filter out, the tension remained thick in the air. With each goodbye, I reveled in the realization that I had taken back some power. Sarah's reputation, her careful construction of our life together, was now in ruins. When the last of our friends left, I looked at her, a mixture of satisfaction and disdain swirling within me. "How does it feel to be exposed?" I asked coldly, fully aware that I had just set off a chain of consequences that would ripple through our lives. Her face was a mixture of anger and heartbreak, but for the first time, I felt like I was the one in control. I had given her a taste of her own medicine, and now it was time for her to face the reality of her choices. I was prepared for the fallout, knowing that this was only the beginning of the reckoning to come. The silence that enveloped the house after our friends left was deafening. I stood there, the adrenaline from the confrontation still coursing through my veins, while Sarah paced back and forth like a caged animal. The exhilaration I felt during the party began to wane, replaced by an unsettling sense of what I had unleashed. "Jake, you can't just do that to me," she shouted, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and despair. "You made me look like a fool in front of everyone." I crossed my arms, leaning against the kitchen counter, trying to maintain my composure amidst the storm brewing before me. "You did that all on your own when you chose to cheat, Sarah. I was just exposing the truth." Her face twisted in anger, but behind that fury I could see the fear lurking. "This doesn't change anything. I didn't mean to hurt you. You know how hard work has been lately. I just needed someone to talk to." "Someone to talk to?" I shot back, raising my voice. "Is that what you call it? Because it looks a lot like betrayal to me. You let it go too far and now you're trying to play the victim." Tears streamed down her cheeks, and I felt a disturbing mix of satisfaction and guilt. Part of me wanted to take pity on her, the woman I once loved who now seemed so small and broken. But that part was drowned out by the desire for her to feel the weight of her decisions. She had made her choices, and I was done being the man who quietly absorbed her lies. "You think I wanted this?" she cried, her voice cracking. "You don't understand what I was going through. I felt lonely, neglected." "Lonely and neglected," I echoed incredulously. "What about me?" "I've been working long hours too, Sarah. But I didn't go out and find solace in the arms of another man." The argument spiraled into a vicious cycle of blame and denial, and I couldn't tell if we were fighting about the affair or the very foundation of our marriage. Each accusation felt like a stab in the heart, but I kept pressing, determined to hold her accountable for her actions. As the night wore on, Sarah's anger turned into desperation. She pleaded with me to give her another chance, to see how sorry she was, but I struggled to reconcile the love I once had for her with the betrayal that now consumed me. "I need time," I said finally, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. "I don't even know if I can trust you anymore." The vulnerability in her expression made my heart ache, but I pushed the feeling aside. I could no longer be the supportive husband who brushed aside his own feelings for the sake of peace. If she wanted to fight for our marriage, she would need to understand that the road ahead would be anything but easy. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house was tense and strained. We exchanged cold words and awkward glances, each interaction reminding us both of the chasm that had formed between us. I spent more time at work, avoiding the uncomfortable conversations that lingered like a shadow over our relationship. But even as I stepped into the office, I couldn't escape the nagging thoughts that plagued me. I wanted revenge, not just for what she had done to me, but for the way she had shattered the trust we had built over the years. It was time to take my plan to the next level. I started reaching out to friends, gathering intel on Sarah and Evan while also subtly spreading the word about her infidelity. I didn't want to turn it into a full-blown scandal, but I felt the need to ensure that she understood the depth of her actions. If she thought she could simply move on from this without consequences, she was sorely mistaken. A week later, I learned that Evan was planning a birthday party for himself, and Sarah was among the invitees. I felt a surge of anger mixed with anticipation at the thought of her celebrating with him, as if nothing had happened. It was the perfect opportunity to pull the final thread of my plan. Together, I decided to attend the party, not as a guest but as a shadow. I would confront both of them, expose her not just to him but to everyone else who would be there. I wanted her to realize that this wasn't going to be brushed under the rug. I wanted her to feel the pulse of betrayal echoing in every corner of her life. The night of the party, I donned my best casual outfit, trying to mask the turmoil inside me. I arrived early, blending in with the crowd as I observed the atmosphere. The music was pumping, laughter filled the air, and there was Sarah, mingling with Evan and seemingly having the time of her life. It made my stomach churn. I grabbed a drink and forced myself to remain calm. I had to wait for the right moment, the perfect opportunity to make my move. I watched as the two of them exchanged flirtatious glances, and jealousy clawed at my insides. For a fleeting moment, I thought about walking away, but I shook that thought off. No, I wasn't here to run away. I was here to confront. As the evening progressed, I noticed Sarah pulling Evan aside for a more private conversation, away from the prying eyes of the other guests. That was my cue. I followed them, heart racing as I approached. Just as they settled into a corner of the room, I stepped into their line of sight, my voice steady and deliberate. "Sarah," I called out, the attention of the party shifting towards us. "Care to explain why you're here with him after everything?" The shock on her face was priceless, and the color drained from Evan's. I could feel the tension in the air as my heart raced. It was the moment of truth, and I was ready to expose the full extent of her betrayal. Consequences be damned. The room fell silent, the music fading into the background as all eyes turned toward me. I felt a mix of exhilaration and dread as I confronted Sarah and Evan, their faces a blend of shock and confusion. "What's going on here?" I continued, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. Sarah's initial surprise quickly morphed into anger. She crossed her arms defensively. "Jake, what are you doing here? This is a private conversation." She snapped, trying to regain control of the situation. "Private conversation?" I scoffed, my heart pounding. "Is that what you call it when you're with the man you cheated on me with? Because it sure looks like a public affair to me." Evan shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Sarah and me, clearly not sure how to proceed. It was almost pitiful watching him squirm, and I relished the power I felt in that moment. I could see Sarah's friends starting to gather around, their curiosity piqued, and I knew I had an audience. "Jake, please, not here," Sarah pleaded, her voice dropping as she stepped closer to me as if that would somehow shield her from the eyes of our friends. "This isn't the time or place. We can talk about this later." "But I want everyone to hear this, Sarah," I said, my voice rising. "I want them to know that while you were pretending to be my loving wife, you were here laughing it up with Evan. I want them to see you for who you really are." I could see the realization dawning on the faces of our friends, the whispers starting to ripple through the crowd. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. The adrenaline buzzed beneath my skin. I had turned the tables, and now it was Sarah who was trapped. "Is this what you wanted, Sarah?" I continued, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "A double life because you've been living it so well." "I didn't want this," she shouted back, her composure cracking. "I made a mistake. You don't understand what I've been feeling. You've been so absorbed in your work that I felt alone. I've been working hard to provide us a life, Sarah. You can't just excuse your betrayal on how I've been busy with my job." The anger surged through me, but I kept my eyes locked on hers, refusing to back down. "If you felt neglected, you should have talked to me instead of running to someone else." By now, a small group had gathered, and I could hear hushed conversations among our friends. I could see sympathy in their eyes, but alongside it was an undeniable sense of intrigue. Sarah's best friend, Melissa, stood at the edge of the crowd, her mouth agape, clearly caught off guard by the unfolding drama. "Jake, this isn't fair," Sarah cried, her defenses crumbling. "You're making me look bad in front of everyone. This is humiliating." "Oh, believe me, the humiliation is just beginning," I shot back. "You thought you could hide your little affair without consequences. You've made your bed, and now you have to lie in it." With that, I turned my attention to Evan, who still stood awkwardly by. "And you," I said, pointing at him, "do you think it's okay to come in and take what isn't yours? You call yourself a man." Evan opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "Save it. You both deserve each other. But let's not pretend this was all just one night or nothing serious. You've both crossed a line, and now everyone knows it." The tension in the air was palpable. I could see Sarah's face twisted in embarrassment and anger, and it felt like a powerful wave washing over me. I was finally reclaiming my narrative, bringing to light the betrayal that had turned my life upside down. As I surveyed the crowd, I noticed some of our friends were whispering among themselves, glancing at Sarah and Evan with a mixture of pity and disdain. Sarah's facade was shattered, and the reality of her actions was laid bare for all to see. I felt a sense of satisfaction washing over me, a bittersweet victory in this twisted game of love and betrayal. "Jake, please," Sarah begged, her voice breaking as tears started to form in her eyes. "You don't have to do this. I'll make it right. Just give me a chance to fix things." "Fix things?" I echoed, incredulous. "How do you plan to fix a marriage built on lies? You want to fix it by running back to me when it's convenient." "No, Sarah, you've made your choices and now you'll have to deal with the fallout." With that, I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving Sarah standing there, exposed and vulnerable. I could hear her muffled cries behind me, but I didn't turn back. I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my dignity, and that was enough for me. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I felt a mix of relief and exhaustion wash over me. I had unleashed the truth, but I knew the battle was far from over. The consequences of this confrontation would ripple through our lives in ways I couldn't yet imagine. But for now, I felt free, free from the burden of hiding my pain, free from the lies that had ensnared us both. I knew I had a long road ahead of me, a journey toward healing and ultimately deciding what my future would look like. But one thing was clear: I would no longer be the man who stood in the shadows while Sarah lived a double life. I was done playing the role of the victim, and I was ready to reclaim my life, one step at a time. The days that followed the confrontation at Evan's party felt surreal. I had unleashed the truth, and now the repercussions were unfolding around me like a storm. Sarah was clearly devastated, and the fallout from our public argument rippled through our social circle like a pebble dropped in a pond. Friends texted, called, and reached out, seeking to understand what had happened. I found myself inundated with sympathy and concern, but it all felt so hollow. In the wake of that night, Sarah tried to reach out to me to discuss things, but I remained distant. I needed space, time to process the chaotic mess our life had become. I could see the darkness in her eyes, the realization of her actions sinking in, but a part of me was still angry. I had to admit that seeing her so vulnerable evoked a mixture of pity and satisfaction within me. It was confusing and unsettling, but I kept reminding myself of the betrayal that had brought us to this point. One evening, I finally agreed to sit down with her. I was uncertain about what I would say, but I knew we needed to have an honest conversation. The tension in the air was thick as we faced each other across the dining table. "Jake, I know I messed up. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to get this far," she began, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my emotions. "You did mean it, Sarah. You allowed it to happen," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. "You made a choice. And now we're left to pick up the pieces." "I know," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears, "but I want to make it right. I'll do anything, Jake. I love you. I want us back the way we were." Her desperation tugged at my heart, but I couldn't ignore the betrayal that loomed like a dark cloud above us. "I don't know if we can go back to that, Sarah. You've broken my trust, and trust is the foundation of any relationship," I replied, feeling the resolve hardening within me. "Please, just give me a chance. I will prove to you that I can change. I'll cut ties with Evan. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right," she pleaded, her voice breaking. I paused, reflecting on her words. Did I really want to try to rebuild what we had? Could I ever forgive her? I felt torn between the love I once had for her and the betrayal that had shattered my world. I needed to be honest with myself and with her. "Sarah, I need time to think. I can't just jump back into this without knowing if I can trust you again," I said, feeling the emotional weight lifting slightly as I spoke my truth. "You've made choices that impacted not just us but everyone around us. It's not just about you anymore." As I looked into her eyes, I could see the realization hit her. She understood that the road to redemption wouldn't be easy. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back," she reiterated, her voice softer now, more genuine. I nodded slowly, unsure of what the future held. "I don't want to rush things. We need to take a step back and really evaluate what we want. I think some distance might be necessary for both of us to gain clarity." In the weeks that followed, I moved into a spare room in our house, creating physical distance as a means to gain emotional distance. It was strange living under the same roof, but it gave me the space to think. I began reflecting on what I wanted moving forward, weighing the options of either trying to salvage our relationship or walking away completely. I started rediscovering parts of myself that had been overshadowed during our years together. I picked up hobbies I had let slide: painting, running, spending time with friends who I hadn't seen in ages. I began to prioritize my own well-being, focusing on healing rather than dwelling in the pain Sarah had caused. Through this period of self-discovery, I leaned on my friends for support. They listened to my frustrations, offered advice, and reminded me of my worth. It felt good to be validated, to have a support system that encouraged me to put myself first. After a month of living in separate spaces, Sarah approached me one evening, her eyes reflecting sincerity. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said softly. "I know I hurt you and I'm truly sorry. I understand if you can't forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm committed to rebuilding the trust we lost." I took a moment to absorb her words. I appreciated her willingness to take responsibility, but I also knew that just saying the right things wasn't enough. "I need to see real change, Sarah, not just talk. I need to know that you're serious about this." Over the next few weeks, I watched her make an effort. She cut ties with Evan, left social media for a while, and focused on her own personal growth. We started having deeper conversations, more honest and raw discussions about our feelings, fears, and what had led us to this breaking point. While I couldn't say I had fully forgiven her, I could see the effort she was making. Gradually, I began to lower my walls a bit, allowing ourselves to reconnect on a deeper level. It was a long and difficult path, but it felt like we were moving in the right direction. One evening, as we sat on the couch together, I turned to her. "I still love you, Sarah, but love alone isn't enough. If we're going to move forward, we both need to commit to rebuilding our foundation together." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'll do whatever it takes," she whispered, genuine determination shining through her vulnerability. And so, we embarked on a tentative journey of healing, taking it one day at a time. I learned that betrayal could either break a relationship or serve as a catalyst for growth. Only time would tell if we could rebuild what had been lost, but I felt a sense of hope. I had finally taken control of my narrative, and while the road ahead remained uncertain, I was ready to embrace whichever path lay before me, together or apart.